Hey there everyone! Welcome back to the channel where we break down all things nutrition to keep you in the loop on the latest trends, research, and guidelines. Today, we're diving into a hot topic, the upcoming 2025 Dietary Guidelines. We'll be talking about the top 10 expected changes, and more importantly, we'll shed some light on how conflicts of interest within the advisory board could be influencing these guidelines. Let's get started. So, let's start with a quick look back at the 2020 Dietary Guidelines. These recommendations emphasized balance, like eating plenty of fruits and vegetables, limiting saturated fats, added sugars, and sodium. But as always, science evolves, and so do the guidelines. With the 2025 update around the corner, here's what you should expect to see. First up, we're expecting stricter limits on added sugars. In 2020, the advice was to keep it under 10% of daily calories, but the new guidelines might drop that down to 6%. Why? Well, we know more now about the links between high sugar consumption and issues like type 2 diabetes and obesity. Cutting back will be key for better long-term health. Next on the list, saturated fats. This has been a big debate for years. The 2020 guidelines kept that old recommendation to limit saturated fats to less than 10% of daily calories. But new research suggests it's not as simple as we thought. Saturated fats from whole food sources like meat and dairy may not be as harmful as previously believed, so we might see a more nuanced approach in 2025. Ultraprocessed foods are in the spotlight now. The 2025 guidelines could recommend limiting these foods even more because they're linked to inflammation, obesity, and chronic diseases. Expect a bigger push to eat more whole, minimally processed foods like fresh meat, eggs, and veggies. Low-carb lovers, rejoice! The 2025 guidelines may finally recognize the benefits of low-carb diets like keto and carnivore, especially for people dealing with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. There's a growing body of evidence that shows how powerful these diets can be, so we're hoping to see more flexibility here. Alcohol consumption is another area where we could see changes. Research now shows that even moderate drinking carries risks, especially when it comes to cancer. The new guidelines may recommend less alcohol or encourage a less is better mindset. Here's an interesting one: the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. Many of us consume too much omega-6 from processed vegetable oils and not enough omega-3 from sources like fish or grass-fed meats. The 2025 guidelines might call for better balance between these two to reduce inflammation and promote heart health. There's growing interest in how our diet affects our mental health. Studies are showing that certain foods can reduce the risk of depression and anxiety. So the 2025 guidelines might link specific dietary patterns to better mental well-being. This is a big deal since it could help us rethink the role of nutrition beyond just physical health. Sustainability is likely to take a bigger role too. The 2025 guidelines might push for more plant-based eating as a way to address environmental concerns. This could mean more recommendations to eat plant-based proteins, though we hope they also consider the greater bioavailability and nutrient density of animal-based foods. We're also seeing more attention to personalized nutrition, tailoring diets based on genetics, lifestyle, and individual needs. It's a fast-growing field, and the new guidelines could offer more flexible approaches to help people find what works best for them rather than a one-size-fits-all solution. Finally, the emphasis on whole foods is likely to remain strong. Expect more encouragement to eat fresh, nutrient-dense foods, think grass-fed meats, eggs, and fish, over highly processed alternatives. It's all about quality over quantity. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room: conflicts of interest. It's no secret that members of the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, DGAC, sometimes have financial ties to the food industry, which can influence their recommendations. Whether it's processed food companies, grain producers, or the sugar industry, these interests can lead to guidelines that favor certain products, even when the science says otherwise. For example, in 2020, there was a recommendation to lower sugar intake, but that was watered down in the final guidelines. Why? Some advisory board members had ties to sugar and food corporations. Similar conflicts can affect dairy, processed grains, and even saturated fats. So, While we're excited to see some positive changes in the 2025 guidelines, we have to keep an eye on these conflicts of interest. If certain industries have a vested interest in the recommendations, we might see less aggressive guidelines when it comes to reducing sugar, grains, and ultra-processed foods. It's something to be aware of as we wait for the final release. At the end of the day, the best thing you can do is stay informed. Keep looking at the research, listen to your body, and find what works for you. The 2025 dietary guidelines will be helpful, but no one-size-fits-all approach is perfect, especially when industry influence is in the mix. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates on all things nutrition. See you next time.